This video is about light design in the theater. I'm Dr. Christiana Moldrum-Harkulich. In this video, we'll go over an example of how a lighting design gets made from initial research through to production. So to reiterate, in lighting, when you're doing research, you want to think about the mood, the tone and color, the time of day, interior versus exterior, and if the lighting is realistic or unrealistic. First, you look at the script and talk to the director and bring in some pictures using abstract thinking, like we talked about, that suit the mood and the look that you might want. And this includes aspects of color, distribution, which means the angle and the texture of the light, movement, and the intensity, how bright or dark it is. So let's look at an example now from a play that I have actually done a light design for. This is a selection from the play This Girl Laughs, This Girl Cries, This Girl Does Nothing by Finnegan Crokermeyer. In this play, which is a play, a coming-of-age story about three girls whose father leaves them. This is a scene right from the beginning. We have a narrator who tells us a little bit of the story. So we'll read these pieces out loud, and then we'll talk about where lighting might happen in the scene. So the narrator says, "And there the man halted, and he turned in the snow which was falling fast, and had covered any footprints that had been laid down, and then he knelt and looked at each girl in turn. And Albion says, 'We have walked for hours, Father. We do not know where we are any more.' And Father says, 'Albion, you are the oldest, and you know cakes like no other. You should taste every experience in this world. Beatrix, you are a child of the sun, and you warm those around you. You should meet every person in this world. And Carmen, you are concerned with all except yourself. You should find your place in this world. I love you three with all my heart. As I have no more use for it, it's all yours.' Beat. He turns and leaves. Albion. And once upon a time, Beatrix. Twice upon a time, Carmen. Thrice upon a time. Three girls who were sisters, who were triplets. They found themselves alone in a wood." So we have this scene, which is a setup for the whole of the show. And the mood for me is very somber. It's got that feeling of quiet in a wood. If you've ever gone hiking before and you get to a section of wood that has a lot of pine, and has a lot of old pine needles on it, it has a soft feeling to it, as though it is incredibly still and a lot is happening all at the same time. And I get this idea both from the way that it makes me feel and also the words that they're saying, right? So we have snow, which is another thing that, for me, when there's a lot of snow around and it's very cold and it's nighttime, the world feels very still. And so that and the woods gives me that idea of that somber attitude, that somber moment, that feeling of the world has stopped and something important is happening. So we get that in the text, and I get it from the feeling of this moment of the father leaving his three girls behind, right? They find themselves alone in a wood. So let's look at the pictures that I brought as my research images. So here are the two pictures that I used in my research process, one of which I took in the woods. And so both of these are getting at texture and lighting intensity, right? And movement, right? There's a path, and there's sort of an ominous feeling. And we have very natural oriented. So when we're thinking about inside, outside, it's very outside light, right? Nothing feels fluorescent in this scene. And so I'm thinking about cool colors, but with spots of warm, right? And these two pictures combined helped me make decisions about how to light the scene. When we're making lighting choices, we have to write cues so that the stage manager in production can say, lighting cue 1, go, and the lights change because there's a a board that will do that. So when we're going back here, right, to the script, you might be in look 1 for the narrator. But then when the narrator isn't speaking, I don't want attention on him. So while he might have been in a spotlight before, I want that to darken, right? And this is the movement that we're talking about. So I think for me, I would then have a cue at the end of the narrator's line right here, right? We might write Q1. And we might make that yellow, just make the highlight yellow, just so that you can see it. So there's Q1, and that changes it, right? And then this scene would have that feeling of a spotlight in the middle of the forest and that somber feel. And I don't think I would change the lighting again until he leaves, and I might write Q2 here. And then we might have a moment where a spotlight comes up after each girl says it. And we tried this out in rehearsal. This is what a technical rehearsal is for. Once the cues are written and decided upon with the stage manager and the director, and they're programmed into the board, then you try them out. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, and you have to delete cues. And that's what rehearsal is for. That trial and error period happens in design, just like it happens with actors. So perhaps you'd put a spotlight on each girl alone, right? Maybe there's a warming of the lights together and it encroaches on them one by one as they go along. And then I'm not sure. For right now, we'll say there's only Q3 at the end, and that's the blackout, right? So we have those 3 cues. So they found themselves alone in the wood, and it's a spotlight just to them at the end, in the middle of the stage, and then it goes black. And that's how you'd write a cue as a lighting designer. And then this is a picture from the production of This Girl Laughs, This Girl Cries, This Girl Does Nothing, of this moment, of these 3 girls together, of Albion, Beatrix, and Carmen alone in the woods. And I've used some gobos. You can see there's a bunch of different colors going on. This is a very color-focused show. There was a lot of puppets involved with the show, so you can see sort of the paper bag aesthetic we were going for with that. But you can also see my research images, if we go back this slide beforehand. This sort of somber feel and shadow over the face and the spotlight, the intensity in the middle. Both of those are present in my final look. And so that gives you an example of how we go from text to research images to abstract ideas to final product with a lighting design.